Hi, I've realized that my video quality is extremely poor, but I'm not going to take the initial one I made down. Just bear with me. This is all new for me. My first video was basically introducing myself and again, fairly poor quality video, but I'll explain a little bit about that. And again, the first video was just to give you a bit of background about myself. Probably not a lot different from hundreds of thousands of other people in terms of life experience, so nothing special there. And in a way, of course, making the videos is a selfish form of therapy because it's talking and it's explaining yourself, and it's having a voice, because something I've experienced um, a lot of as a person with mental illness is not having a voice. And what do I mean by not having a voice? I mean people being afraid, people distancing themselves, people turning away, people deciding they don't want to be um, involved in your life. And there's different reasons for that. And I look at, there's probably two main emotions in life: love and fear. And when we don't understand something, when something feels threatening to us, we're afraid of it and we distance ourselves from it. That serves a purpose in terms of survival. There's a reason that we have those built-in coping mechanisms, built-in survival mechanisms. From a biological perspective, they do keep us safe. We've also been given a brain, and we do have a soul. We have a spirit. There's a very spiritual side to all of us, at least in my belief. I do very much believe in the soul, again, as a person who identifies as a Christian. Again, bear with me. I hope that doesn't turn you off, because I would probably be considered a very liberal Christian, a very leftist Christian. Maybe that turns you off too. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that people are afraid. I know in my own family, initially, when a lot of the trauma surfaced after the birth of my son, and then 2 years after his birth, one of my brothers, who I absolutely adored, and who was probably one of maybe two people in my whole life that offered me unconditional love, which is an extremely rare gift. He died in '95 from an overdose, and it devastated me. And I was already suffering from, depression, postpartum depression. The post-traumatic stress disorder was rising to the surface, and then he died 2 years after that. And it was devastating. It was a devastating loss, and I think of him every day. Um, so where I'm coming from today is looking at those things that happen to you, and perhaps what you have found with your mental illness is this isolation, this distancing, this loss of family, this loss of friends. And recently for me, this has really come to a head for me with people. And I've tried to understand it, and I go to my therapist, and I go to my doctor, and I talk to the pastor from my church, and I've finally reached a point of where I don't feel that deep loneliness anymore. It's gone. I'm not saying it won't be back, and maybe you're thinking, well, how did you do that? I think one thing was just, it sounds very simplistic, and I'm not trying to simplify the process because it's different for everyone. It took me a long time, but it was an acceptance. And it was after several times of asking for help, because currently what's happening for me is that I'm having to do a medication switch. And for people that have dealt with mental illness long term or even short term and have had to go through medication switches because your meds just stop working, they don't work anymore. Our bodies change, we get older, we go through different things, they lose their effectiveness. We're biological beings, you know, our bodies are very dynamic. Change happens, aging happens, you know, and that's what's happened with me over the last year. And it was a culmination of a very stressful life, basically, a very stressful marriage. There's two sides to every story, but I don't think there is when it comes to cruelty. I don't. And you can, and the marriage I was in, I don't think the person set out to be cruel or mean. I loved this person right up to the end of my marriage, but was emotionally unavailable. It was too much reality for this person to deal with. Not only a wife that was struggling with anxiety, depression, and obviously the key issue of post-traumatic stress disorder, but then when we had a child, that I knew, yeah, around 2 years of age was when he started having behaviors, and I knew as a mother that there was something. And again, it was running all over the place at the time, trying to get a diagnosis. Not that it was going to change it, but it gave me something to work with. And I was repeatedly told, you know, by my husband and his family, you know, that I was making this up, that I was creating this, and going to people, different specialists. And finally, he was diagnosed on the spectrum. And looking back now, it's so obvious. And he's very high functioning, and I hope he's not embarrassed by this, but he is who he is. He's awesome. He's independent. He lives on his own. Everybody has issues. But in terms of support or recognition for what was happening with him, it wasn't happening in my house. And that was not having a voice, that was being silenced. And it ended up silencing my son. Peyton really struggled with that. You know, my son, he struggled with it. And he struggled with, it also led to a point where he was suicidal. He felt very rejected and very silenced and not seen for who he was. So there's a difference between enabling, and there's a difference when someone says, I recognize that this is an issue for you. I'm here for you. We're going to get through this. You know, it's not saying to someone, oh, you're completely, you know, disabled and there's, you know, we have to baby you. Probably not making much sense here, but what I'm saying is that you're going to find that it's fear-based. People are afraid. And I try to see it from people's other side, because I think, okay, what have I done that's so scary? You know, I can be very intense. I'm a very intense person. I feel things very intensely. One thing that I'm very intense about is social justice. I've always been this way. I don't know why. I think it's because my mother experienced so much discrimination growing up and poverty, and she had a strong sense of social justice. She was always there for people that were struggling. So whether it's part genetics or part, I know that my grandfather was blacklisted for his struggles to try and organize a union in the early days, probably in the 20s or something like that, where we grew up. So I'm very intense. I'm very intelligent. I feel things. I'm very intense. One of the things, like I said, that I'm very intense about is social justice. I've seen a lot of it in my work, 30 years of nursing and teaching. I'm struck by people's inability to see that. It's very challenging for me to, I wish, and like I said in the first video that I almost wish that I wasn't as aware. You wish that I could just, you know, drink some beer on a Friday night and eat pizza. And I wish. I've had people tell me all my life, you're too serious, you're too serious. I can't change who I am. This is who I am. And when people get to know me, and they get past some of that, because I'm introverted, I'm a bit shy, I'm a bit, I don't do really well with small talk. I'd rather have one or two really close friends that I could have good conversations with, good belly laughs, than be in a big group of people. That's just who I am. But the people who have taken the effort to get past some of those things with me that are very intense, and probably a big turnoff to most people, then they get all the good stuff, the creativity, the laughter. I'm hilarious. I'm absolutely hilarious. I know that people watching this that know me will agree with that. Um, I love nature. I love animals. I love beauty. I love poetry. I love to sing. I play the guitar a bit. I'm quite a good artist. Like I said, I love to write. Um, I can share a lot of, deeper, beautiful wisdom around certain things. But yes, I am very intense when it comes to social justice. I'm very intense with my own family, and getting back again to that loneliness and what's happening with me is, it's very scary for people to be around mental illness anyway, because if they don't understand it, and if you are crying and upset and pounding into a pillow and you're in despair, that's, people don't know what to do. What do they do with that? And so they distance themselves. um I This is very personal, but I've recently had to declare bankruptcy. um I was not able to work for a year and a half. I had to rely on credit. There was no way I could pay it back with ending up on a disability. I reached out to some family members a couple of times for some help, and a friend, and what I have found out in our society is that the bottom line is money, and it is a taboo subject, and that is part of our neoliberal system. It's very much a part of individualism and part of, well, I worked for it, so, you can't have it. And I won't get into that now, but I understand that, and people are right that what you do earn is yours. But there is another moral imperative, I feel, that has to do with fairness. And when I reached out to people and try to say that this isn't just about me, this is also about my daughter, because she cannot live with her father. She will not live with him. She will go to live on the streets before she goes to live with him. That's the way it is, and people don't seem to listen to that or understand. And what I've always said to people is that my wellness, my well-being in this society is the well-being of my children. So this is something that happens every day. It doesn't just happen to me, and it especially happens to women who are black or brown. I look white, so that's a head, like I have a bit of a head start that way, whether people choose to believe that or not. I've researched it and researched it, and I've lived it, and that is a truth. It's not just about pulling up your bootstraps and getting on with it. Um, that type of disparity and barrier is very real. And I especially experienced that in the year and a half of trying to get a disability. It took so much out of me. It literally beat the hell out of me trying to do that. And you can see in these videos, I don't know if you've noticed, and again, the quality's poor. I have what's called an essential tremor. It's not Parkinson's, but it's definitely gotten worse because of all the stress and because of the damage to my central nervous system. So I'm trying to get back to, because I'm very scattered today, the purpose of this video. I think it's mostly about telling people where I am at right now. I am in the middle of a medication change, like I said, and for people that have been through this with mental illness, it is absolutely, absolutely, I don't want to say terrible, but it is. It's absolutely one of the most difficult things, and I've had to do this several times in the last 23 years. And it's been a little easier the earlier times because I was younger and my body was still healthier. As I'm getting older and dealing with hypothyroidism and anemia that's slowly correcting itself, and starting a new medication, and people have to understand the side effects from these medications, and you'll understand this if you're going through this, are absolutely real. If you're one of the lucky ones and you have a fairly rigorous or um, different type of constitution, maybe you'll sail through. But for most people, including myself, and especially this time, the side effects, it is not a complete science. It is a bit of a crapshoot. So they try to look at, okay, what are your symptoms? What can we try? The one I'm started on, well, 3 months ago now, and it's still not working. So I know I'm going to have to do, and this will be my third med switch in 6 months, 6, 7 months. It's been about a year really with playing around with things. It's absolutely taken its toll. This medication, the fatigue from it is debilitating. So I've actually on my own cut back by 5 milligrams last night. And because I can't get a hold of my psychiatrist, and this is the other thing with the system, and he's wonderful, he's a great psychiatrist, but he's very busy, totally backed up. He wants me to see an endocrinologist because of the other issues that are going on with my body and the debilitating anxiety I'm having. But I can't get into this endocrinologist here until mid-July. And in the meantime, it's very real living with probably about 25% quality of life, to be honest with you. About 25%. I have to force myself to get up. And we're talking about someone, I used to be a competitive runner. I don't smoke. I don't drink. And again, I'm grateful that mostly I've taken care of myself through my life. The anxiety is horrible, the weakness, and it feeds back into that feedback loop related to the way it is with anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder, where I start thinking, okay, am I anemic again? Okay, is my thyroid getting worse? It just keeps feeding it until I'm so anxious I'm faint, and so anxious I'm weak. And the other person, the main person, if for people that can't still get their head around it, I think about my daughter and the guilt that goes with that. And when I've reached out to people, it's been as a mother saying, okay, if you have differences with me, please think about my daughter. This is very real for her. Because I've recently asked people if they could come, and I've got no reply. And I understand that we're all busy with our lives, and again, it reflects a lot of issues related to this setup of structures and families and communities in our society. I'm not mad anymore. Like I said, recently, one good thing is a peace that's filled me related to acceptance of what this is. Do I like it? No. Is it hard? It's more than hard, and for people that are going through it, they understand that. But it's more of an acceptance. It's some type of surrender to it. It's not a giving up. It's a surrender and an acceptance that comes with realizing it doesn't matter how I've ended up like this or the choices that other people have made. There's nothing I can do about it. And while that sounds very simplistic and very almost romantic and spiritual, it's been hard won. It's been extremely hard won to get to that place. And am I going to be in that place tomorrow when I'm on the floor again, or this afternoon? Because it's a roller coaster. And I can't even go there because, as I said, this current medication is not working. It's not working for me. I mean, I'm certainly not as anxious as I was, but the anxiety I had before was also connected to coming off of something called Effexor, which has horrific withdrawal symptoms. So again, sharing a little bit more about me and where I'm at, and letting people know that they are not alone with this, that you are not bad, you are not a throwaway person, you are not disposable like garbage, even though that is the way you end up feeling because of the lack of compassion and the way that people decide to leave your life or to turn away from your life because the way our society is structured now and because of the cultural beliefs in our system and in our society, that if you can't make it, you're a throwaway. I am not a throwaway. I am loving and compassionate and talented and have things to offer the world. And so do you. You absolutely do. For younger people, if you're watching this, there's an amazing book. And of course, I'm going to forget the name of it. I think it's called 101 Alternatives to Suicide. I don't have the name of the author with me. 101 Alternatives to Suicide. And while it sounds really dark, it is an amazing book that my daughter introduced me to that is great for anyone of any age. So again, this little video, I've talked on and on, but it has been letting you know where I'm at right now. The first video was a bit of background, and this one is letting you know my current situation. And it is being filmed from my bedroom because this is where I spend 99% of my time now, because I am very afraid of everything. And I forced myself to do certain things because my daughter needs those things. And I've been blessed to have one person step up to offer to get her to her violin lessons and a couple other things if she needs it. And thank goodness she's doing really well and takes the bus to go to school and has a couple of good friends and good counselor, etc., and wonderful teachers. So I'm blessed in this regards. I'm going to keep making these videos whether people are interested in them or not. It is for selfish reasons. It's therapeutic for me. But I also absolutely, if this is all that I can offer for the rest of my life, is that people are not alone with this, and that you are not evil or bad or scary or throwaway or disposable. You are not. You are not. And I know that. And I want you to know the same. Have a peaceful day.